What's the sexiest moment you've seen by accident? I was walking home drunk at 2 a.m. and walked past some people doing it doggy style on their knees behind a tree. We were no more than 10 feet from each other. Our eyes met. They stopped like deer in headlights. Then in my drunken stupor I say, "Party on, throw up some devil horns and walk away." Parking my truck at a motel. The room window in front of me had their blinds open about 2 feet. Inside was a man in a suit, a woman in a very sexy black dress, and a second woman naked except for a garter belt and nylons. Speep was about to get real in there. The motel tells me this was most likely a guy spending his week's paycheck on some hookers. Not that there is anything wrong with that. In my mind the two dressed people were married swingers. The naked chick was the girl they brought back from the swingers party. Or a potential secret agent standoff. The girl in the garter belt had seduced the besooted gentleman. Or vice versa. The woman in the black dress was a rival agent who had tracked them down. I was 13. Selling newspaper subscriptions door to door around 7 p.m. one night. Hit an apartment complex for that easy money. Knocked on a door, and before the third knock, the door flew open. And a very attractive brunette in black lacy lingerie and thigh highs came into my life. Well, hello those peep, and slammed the door in my face. Obviously was expecting someone else. My balls dropped that night. I had a similar one. I was delivering post as a temp job one summer before uni, and I knocked on the door to this flat and a woman answered the door. Perfect 10. Wearing what was basically a flannel. Just jumped out of the shower. She says, "Oh. Sorry. I thought you were my sister," I reply. "No problem. I have a package for you. Sadly I was not invited in hat." Flying home for Christmas on leave from Navy Hospital in 1973. Still very weak, so I was first passenger on plane. Stewardess has placed extra pillows and blankets on seat across from me. She leans over to get the last one. She was wearing a garter and stockings and nothing else under her skirt. Would have been even more exciting, except all I could do was imagine. I am 6'2" tall and weighed about 95 pounds at the time. I had lost so much weight due my illness. So all I could do was think about sex, but even if she had been willing, nothing I could have done. Oh. Funniest sexy story also happened at airport. Tall sexy blonde wearing a skin-tight red dress barely cover her rear. Tight enough you can tell no bra and only a thong. She's walking and I'm bored, so I slow down to keep from passing her up as we're walking in same direction. As I get to my gate I notice an elderly Asian couple sitting on seats facing us as we walk towards them. I've been staring at this lady's ass hoping the skirt rides up a little higher. So instead I'm watching to see if the old man has a reaction. She walks and then turns to head to the check-in counter right in front of the couple. Old Asian man doesn't move anything but his eyes. You can see him strain to watch without moving his head. I thought that was hilarious, but I was wrong. As soon as the lady in the red dress walks past them, the old lady also, without moving anything else, moves arm next to the old man and slams her elbow into the side of the old man. He just grunts but gets a little smile on his face. It was all I could do to not stop and laugh out loud. They had been married long enough. The old woman knew he had looked and he figured it was still worth the jab in the side. My preteen self was in line for the diving board at the local pool when the girl who just jumped in ran back into line, with her right boob popping out of her bikini. After staring for a good 5 seconds, she finally noticed and giggled as she put it back. Which gave me the opportunity to learn just how weird it is to jump into a pool and swim with a woody undefined. Was out fly fishing in the middle of nowhere in Slovenia. I saw two people off in the distance further down the river. They appeared to be naked. As I got closer I saw a female sitting on a stool with her legs open. A man was on his knees in the water and he was shaving her pussy with the razor that he was rinsing off in the river. I'll never forget this. Friend's stepmom had recently married his dad. She was from Florida. We were moving stuff to her grandparents' house. It was the middle of summer. She was sweating. And it was great for 15-year-old me. Then she rolled her shirt up to show some glorious underboob. It would have lasted much longer if she didn't see me gawking. But it's an image forever burned into my mind. Was walking down the street in Center City, Philly during the day when I had the sudden urge to look up at one of the apartment buildings. There, on about the 4th floor, I saw a couple butt-ass naked, going at it doggy style against the window. She was making her O face and opened up her eye during the peek and locked immediately with mine. I quickly looked at the pavement and just kept on walking. Back in high school I was taking my dog for an evening walk around my neighborhood. She's doing her business and starts barking up at someone's house. So of course I look to see what made her bark, and lo and behold there's a girl from my class. Topless and just out of the shower looking out her window. I don't think she saw me, but I made sure to feed my dog extra treats when we got back. Damn, I miss that mutt. My freshman orientation of college, we are all going outside for another damn tour. I'm sitting up against a wall when this absolutely stunning girl in a dress walks out of the commons door and a gust of wind hits her, lifts the dress up, and reveals she is not wearing underwear. Started that tour with a boner. Looked out a hotel room window to a woman, the opposite side of the street, on her bed, fingering herself and recording it. My dick smashed the glass. When I was younger I looked out of my window and saw my neighbor masturbating in his bathroom. He went on for about 10 minutes and they were some of the best 10 minutes of my 16-year-old life. Alright. Let's see if this is the proper thread for this. In junior year of high school, our class took a trip to snorkel and scuba dive in the Key Largo, Florida. At the location we stayed there was also an underwater hotel for guests. When we first got there we had to learn how to properly snorkel. The scuba divers had already taken a course on how to scuba and we learned near the underwater hotel. So as we're practicing, all the kids started hanging out in one area and spending more time than normal underwater. One of the instructors swam over near us and dove down to see what all the kids were looking at. A couple had rented the underwater hotel room for their honeymoon and were doing what newlyweds do on their honeymoon, with the curtains open. So the instructor, in an attempt to warn them of the 40 or so high schoolers watching them, tapped on their window. When they finally noticed the woman had a look of such fear on her and ran to close the curtains while simultaneously attempting to cover herself. The man on the other hand appeared to be in shocked silence. But just as the curtain was pulled shut he appeared to have a look of pride. Like he was bragging about his incredibly attractive wife to a bunch of high schoolers he would never again meet. We then had a class meeting about how it is improper to watch people have sex. TLDR. Always close your curtains. One year in my mid-20s. I lived next door to a family in Cambridge. Their daughter came home from college that spring. My bedroom window faced hers. She used wooden blinds that were more or less completely transparent. Each night, before bed, she would just stand naked in front of her mirror. Or sometimes she'd sit on the edge of her bed and face the mirror. That summer she studied her own body closely. And I guess I got to know it pretty well, too. I watched a Gant water buffalo get a blowjob. Took me more than a few seconds to comprehend what I was seeing. During that time the buffalo snorted with pleasure and I walked away. When I was growing up I lived next to a very religious family that had 4 attractive daughters. They also had a pool which you could see from my parents' bedroom window. Well, one day I was home alone and went to grab something in their room when I noticed the second oldest daughter, about 20 years old at the time, swimming by herself. I got to where I could see her and she probably couldn't see me to watch her for a sec, mainly because I was a horny teenage boy. But also because what she was doing seemed a bit weird. She started out doing what looked like water exercises with her legs and made her way to the edge every few seconds to perch her elbows on it and dangle in the water. But while she was dangling there, she would look around like she didn't want anybody to see her. And if a car passed by, she would dart to the center of the pool and slowly make her way back to the edge again. This went on for a few minutes and I was getting more and more curious until it dawned on me. She's dangling over one of the jets in the pool and it's hitting her right in the sweet spot. I could have very well passed out from all the excitement when I finally figured it out. Those good little Christian girls never looked the same to me again. What's the sexiest